So what happens when the traditional media, whatever's left of it, keeps publishing fake news or fake stories or fake letters to the editor? In the city of Olympia, the capital of Washington State, the dying local paper called the Olympian just seems to be doing just that. And while the censorship debate about misinformation rages in the halls of our government, it raises the question, one that we've brought up many times, exactly who is distributing misinformation in our community. So let's get to the story first and then review the obvious ethical problems that we see here. What brought this issue to my attention was a letter to the editor that was published in the online version of the Olympian, and I've actually linked to it down below. This letter to the editor was supposedly written by an Emma Barnes, from Olympia, who basically claims that she worked at the Thurston County Sheriff's Office. Now, it is very critical of the newly elected Thurston County Sheriff Sanders, and it's a very personal attack on him. Okay, fair enough. The only problem is that there is nobody named Emma Barnes who works in the sheriff's office. Now, there is an Emma Barnes who lives in Olympia, but as she clearly posted on her Facebook pages just a few days ago, see here, and I've actually linked to this down below as well, she didn't write the letter and was obviously upset that somebody used her name to do so. Now, there is a fake Facebook account under the same name right here, using a photo of a model from overseas, apparently this person from the Czech Republic. And it looks like that's where they got the photo from, and presumably this was the profile that they presented to the Olympian. And the Olympian, of course, published it without bothering to do any real due diligence. And so we have a fake letter to the editor under someone else's name, trashing the Thurston County Sheriff in a very personal way. Now, you can also see that it got plenty of exposure on other fake news channels like Yahoo News right here. So listen, I actually like letters to the editor. I've written them myself over the years, and I've written them to the Olympian back when they still had a physical office and appeared to be a growing concern. Every time I wrote a letter to the editor and sent it to them, they would actually call me and make sure that I actually wrote it. And it appears today that they no longer do this. So this is just another example of fakery in the local paper of record in Olympia. Now, the reason this didn't make more waves than it did is because so few people read this paper anymore, and it isn't clear many people noticed. Heck, I actually wouldn't have noticed it myself if it hadn't been brought to my attention by some Olympia residents who have basically despaired that they have no more true local news or local reporting. And I'm reporting on this story not because I supported Sanders in his election last year. I did not, actually. I voted for his opponent, John Snaza, who I had known for over a decade, and I even produced a video about this last year, and I'll link to that below as well. However, to be honest, I've been very happy with Sheriff Sanders after he was elected, and right now I'm actually planning to vote for him the next time. What we're seeing really is that the Democrat Party in Thurston County is not happy with the sheriff, mainly because he opposed the violent sex predator house in South Thurston County, and he actually wants to catch criminals and reduce crime in Thurston County. And apparently to the Democrats, this is not what they wanted when they helped him get elected last year. So clearly many of them now are trying to undermine the sheriff using fake letters to the editor, like this one, and then getting the fake news to print it. Which of course brings me to the topic of fake news, traditional news outlets, and the censorship that's being demanded by our political elite. If the Olympian publishes fake stuff like this letter to the editor, and I've got plenty of more dramatic examples, even from back in the days when they used to print their own papers before they moved their call center to the Philippines, and when they still had physical offices. And now, should they be censored for their failures, both now and the past? By current standards that are demanded by our political elite and their allies in big tech, the Olympian should be classified as a fake news site entirely and censored, but they are not. Now, I don't want the Olympian censored, or I don't want any other fake news outlet for that matter. They should be chastised, perhaps. That's probably for sure, but they can be mocked. Absolutely, I like to do that myself. But they deserve that, and they should expect no less. But the reason I don't want to censor them, as fake as their reporting might be, is because the bigger question is who determines what is real and what is fake? My critiques of the Olympian and other traditional media outlets over the years, they're valid, I believe, and I stand behind them, and I'll continue to make them, but I don't want them censored. I actually believe that as their quality of reporting kind of collapses and these traditional media empires continue to crumble as they prioritize protecting the dominant political narrative of the political elite rather than the truth, the market itself is going to take care of them. I mean, their subscription base is collapsing. I mean, very few people read them anymore. And I don't see their future as a going concern to be very bright. Now, this may be what they deserve, and it's a far better outcome than abusive censorship. But this does create a problem, and it creates a vacuum in our communities right now. We still need to report on local news, and we need to report the truth. I believe people are hungry for this information, but they don't know where to get it. If nobody is doing this, then abuse of government, crime, and other problems, they just simply grow unchecked. Now, social media feeds, that may provide some of this information on a limited basis, but the public trust factor, of course, is sometimes lacking there as well. Nextdoor, that often silences and censors people who don't toe the dominant political line. Facebook clearly works overtime to censor and shadow ban anyone who reports on government abuse in their local community, particularly if they critique Democrat or big government policies. And yet, we must strive to create more formats to share the truth locally. The answer to fake news like the Olympian isn't to censor them. It is to recognize their limitations and biases and go find the truth somewhere else. I mean, that might mean that small groups of local people may need to step up and report the truth about what they see happening in their community. We're in a time of churn right now, but it won't fix itself. These challenges will only be addressed by those who show up and start to do it themselves. Because I believe in the end, the future always and only belongs to those who show up.